There is a question you ask yourself in the dark, and you never say it out loud. Why didn't I start sooner? You ask it on the drive home. You ask it in the shower. You ask it in the long, quiet minute before sleep, when there is no one left to perform for. When the truth comes and sits on your chest, you count the years behind you. You count the things you meant to do and didn't, and the number feels like a weight. One you have dragged so long you forgot you were the one who picked it up. Here is what I want to do. I want to ask you a different question, and I am not going to answer it yet. The answer is going to surprise you. I want you to arrive at it the way I did. Slowly from the side. When you are not bracing for it, the question is this. What if the time you think you wasted is the only reason you are ready now? Sit with that. Let it stay uncomfortable for a moment, because there is an easy answer. You have heard it 100 times. It's never too late, just start today. And you have nodded at that 100 times, and it has changed nothing, because deep down, you do not believe it. It sounds like a fridge magnet. It sounds like something said by someone who started on time. So I am not going to say that. I am going to show you something harder and truer instead. But you have to come with me through a few turns to see it. And I will warn you now, somewhere in the middle, I am going to say something that sounds like the opposite of comfort. Something that might sting on the way in. Stay with it when it comes, because the sting is the door. The thing that finally sets people free is almost never the soft thing. It is the true thing, said gently. Soft lies leave you exactly where they found you. I would rather tell you something true. Let me start somewhere strange. Let me start with a man planting a tree. 1. There is an old proverb. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. You have probably heard the first half and used it as a whip. 20 years ago. You missed it. The best time is gone. Now you are stuck with second best, and second best feels like consolation. Like the participation ribbon of a life. But stay with the image. Picture the man who planted his tree 20 years ago. Picture him now, standing in its shade. And picture yourself today, kneeling in the dirt with a small seedling in your hands. Here is the thing no one tells you about that proverb. The man in the shade is not better than you. He is just earlier. And his tree does not make your tree smaller. There is no shortage of sky. His tree growing does not use up the growing that is available to yours. You are not competing for the same sun. We were taught somewhere, somehow, that life is a race down a single track, that the people ahead of us are winning, that the gap between us and them is shame. But a forest is not a race. A forest is just trees, each one growing at the only speed it can. From the spot where its seed happened to fall, no tree is late. No tree is early. Each is simply where it is. The young tree does not look at the old tree and quit. It would never occur to the young tree to quit. It just grows, because growing is the only thing a tree was ever asked to do. You were not asked to have started 20 years ago. You were asked to plant the tree. That is the whole assignment. Plant the tree. The proverb does not end with, "but you missed your chance." It ends with the second best time, and the second best time is the most powerful phrase in that whole sentence. It is the only part you can actually do anything about, so kneel down. Put the seedling in the ground. The man in the shade is not your judge. He is just proof that trees grow. 2. Now let me tell you something true about regret. I think you have it backwards. And the backwards version has been quietly cutting you for years. You believe regret is evidence. You look back at a choice, you feel the sting, and you take that sting as proof that you failed. Guilty. The feeling itself becomes the verdict. But think about what regret actually requires. To regret a decision, you have to be able to see today something you could not see back then. You need a better vantage point. You need more wisdom than you had at the time. Regret is not the residue of failure. Regret is the receipt of growth. It is your present self standing on higher ground. Looking back at the valley you walked through, finally able to see the whole shape of it. The person who made those choices could not see what you see now. They were standing in the valley. They had the fog, the fear, the half-information, the wounds that were still open. And with all of that pressing on them, they chose. Maybe they chose wrong, but they chose with the only eyes they had. You keep dragging that person into court. You keep prosecuting them with evidence they never had access to. It is the most unfair trial imaginable. The defendant is judged by a smarter, calmer, safer person. Someone who arrived years later and already knows how the story turns. Here is a harder question. If you could go back, knowing only what you knew then, feeling only what you felt then, would you really have chosen differently? Be honest. Not with today's mind dropped into yesterday's body. With yesterday's whole self. Most of the time, the painful answer is no. You would have done the same thing because you were exactly who you were. And if that is true, then the regret is not pointing at a failure. It is pointing at the distance. The distance between who you were and who you have become. And that distance is not your shame. It is your proof of life. It means you moved. Stop prosecuting the person who got you here. They were doing their best in the dark. And look, the dark did not win. You are here. 3. I want to put 2 people in front of you. Watch them closely, because the difference between them is smaller than you think, and it changes everything. The first person carries a quiet belief, so quiet they have never said it aloud. The belief is this: my best chance already passed, so whatever I do now is just cleanup. Just managing the loss. They are not lazy. They work hard, sometimes harder than anyone, but they work like someone tidying up after a fire. There is no future in their effort, only the past being swept into neater piles. Everything they build with one eye on the life that could have been. And that ghost drains the color out of everything real. The second person carries a different belief, equally quiet. Everything before now was the run-up. This is the jump. Same age, same regrets. Same lost years, down to the day, but this person treats the past as a runway, not a graveyard. The speed they built up in all those years, even the wasted-looking ones, is exactly what is going to carry them off the ground now. Give them both 5 years. The same 5 years, same talent, same luck, same obstacles. The first person spends 5 years managing a loss, and at the end, they have a slightly tidier loss. The second person spends 5 years running off a runway, and at the end, they are in the air. Nothing separated them at the start except a sentence they told themselves about what their past meant. One called it a graveyard. One called it a runway. And that single sentence quietly wrote the next 5 years of their lives before these years even began. You are telling yourself a sentence right now about what your past means. You have been telling it for years. And I want you to notice that you chose that sentence. It feels like a fact. It is not a fact, it is an interpretation. And interpretations can be put down and traded for better ones. 4. Let me complicate the comforting story, because if I only comfort you, you will be suspicious, and you should be. It is not actually true that timing never matters. That would be a lie, and you would feel the lie. Timing matters enormously. There are doors that close. There are chances that do not come around again. There are things you genuinely cannot do now that you could have done then. I am not going to insult you by pretending otherwise. But here's the part the fridge magnets miss. The door that closed behind you is not the only door. It is just the one you keep staring at. We do this strange thing. We fall in love with the one opportunity we missed. We decide it was the only one. The true one. The one that would have fixed everything. And then we spend our remaining time mourning that single door, with our backs turned to a hallway full of others. The chance you missed felt like destiny because you can see exactly how it would have gone. The mind loves a finished story, but that finished story is a fantasy. You do not actually know it would have gone well. You have just rehearsed the good version so many times it feels like a memory of something real. It is not. It is a daydream wearing the costume of a loss. Meanwhile, the doors in front of you look smaller and less certain because you cannot see how they end. Of course you can't. They haven't happened yet. That uncertainty is not a sign that they are worse. It is a sign that they are real. The missed door is finished and safe and dead. The open doors are unfinished and frightening and alive. You have been comparing a polished fantasy to an uncertain reality and then feeling bad that reality lost. Of course it lost. It was a rigged fight. Stop staging it. 5. Let me tell you about an ordinary kind of person, because grand examples are easy to dismiss and ordinary ones are harder to escape. There is someone who decides at some unremarkable age that they are too far gone to learn the thing they always wanted to learn. Play the instrument, change the career, speak the language, make the work. They are sensible about it. They say, if I start now, it'll take years, and I'll be old by the time I'm any good. And the years pass. And one day they are exactly as old as they feared, and they did not start. And so the years passed and bought them nothing. The thing they were afraid of, the time passing, happened anyway. Time does not stop for the people who refuse to begin. It only stops mattering. Now picture the same person making the opposite choice. They say, yes, it'll take years, and I'll be old by the time I'm any good. Exactly the same sentence. But this time they finish it differently. And I'm gonna be old anyway. So I'd rather be old and able to do the thing than old and still wishing. The years pass for this person too. The same number of years. The clock does not speed up or slow down based on courage. But this person arrives at the same age holding the thing they wanted, while the first person arrives at the same age holding only the regret they were trying to avoid. Here is what I want you to see. The time was going to pass either way. That was never in question. It was never up to you. The only thing that was ever up to you was what you would be holding when it did. The fear was never about the time. The time is neutral. The fear was a story about the time, and the story talked you out of the very thing that would have made the time worth passing. The years are leaving regardless. Let them leave carrying something you built, not something you merely mourned. 6. Let me tell you about a strange trick the mind plays with time, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it and it loosens something. When you look backward, time looks enormous. 20 years, a whole decade gone. The losses pile up and the number swells until it blots out the sky. But when you look forward, time looks tiny. I'm too old. There's not enough time left to start now. The same person in the same minute treats the past as a vast ocean and the future as a thimble. Both cannot be true. And in fact, neither is. The past only looks enormous because it is finished, and finished things can be measured, weighed, mourned in full. The future looks small because it is unknown, and the mind shrinks what it cannot see. But the truth is the opposite of how it feels. The past, however long, is fixed and finite and spent. The future, however short, is the only part of your life that is still open, still unwritten, still yours to spend. Run the actual numbers sometime, gently, when you are calm. People wildly underestimate how much time they have left, because grief over the past floods the calculation. A person convinced their life is essentially over will say it at 40, at 50, at 60, and then they live another 30, 40, 50 years. And they spend a heartbreaking number of those years certain it was already too late. While the years themselves go quietly by, unused, proving them wrong the whole time and never being noticed. Do not do the thing where you mourn a future you have not even lost yet. That is the strangest grief of all, grieving time that is still in your hands, right now, unspent, waiting. You would not throw away money you still had in your pocket because you once lost some. Do not throw away the years you still have because you mourn the ones you don't. 7. Now, loosen your grip for a moment. We have been climbing and I want to give you a flat stretch to walk. Take a breath. Let it out slowly. Let your shoulders come down from where they have been living, up around your ears. There is nothing to defend in the next minute. No argument to win. Just something I want you to consider gently. You speak to yourself in a voice you would never use on another living soul. Picture the words you say in your own head when you fall short. Idiot. You blew it again. Of course you did. You always do. Now picture saying those exact words in that exact tone to a child who is trying. Picture a small kid working hard at something difficult, getting it wrong. And you lean down and say, "Of course you got it wrong." You always do. You would never. The thought is sickening. You would not say it to a child. You would not say it to a friend. You would not say it to a stranger on the street. But you say it to yourself daily, and you call it being realistic. It is not realistic. It is just cruel, and the cruelty has a cost. A person who is being screamed at does not perform better. They flinch, they freeze. They start avoiding the very thing they are being screamed at about, because approaching it now means approaching the screaming. Half of what you call laziness is just a person trying not to walk back into a room where someone yells at them. And the someone is you. You do not need a harsher voice to finally get going. You have tried the harsh voice for years. It did not work. It never works. What you have never fully tried is the other thing. The patient voice. The one you would actually use on someone you wanted to see succeed. Talk to yourself like someone you are rooting for. Not because you have earned it. Because it is the only thing that has ever actually helped a human being grow, and you are a human being, and you are still trying to grow. And notice what the harsh voice is really afraid of. It thinks that if it stops yelling, you will go soft, you will give up, you will let yourself off the hook and drift. That is the bargain it has been selling you for years. Be cruel to yourself, or you will become lazy. But look at the actual evidence of your life. The cruelty did not make you fearless, it made you avoid. The contempt did not make you brave, it made you hide. The voice promised that harshness would protect you. Instead, it has been the very thing standing between you and the start line. Who wants to walk toward a place where every stumble gets punished? Kindness is not the opposite of discipline. Kindness is what makes discipline survivable. The athletes who last are not the ones with the cruelest inner coach. They are the ones who can fail on Tuesday and still show up on Wednesday, because Tuesday's failure did not come with the beating. You will start, and you will stumble, and you will need to come back the next day. The only voice that lets you come back the next day is the kind one. So it is not a luxury. It is the engine. Without it, you stop at the first fall every time, the way you always have. 8. I want to take away one more weight you've been carrying. It is one of the heaviest, and you carry it without ever looking at it directly. It is the weight of everyone else's timeline. You have a map in your head of when things are supposed to happen. By this age, you should have done that. By that age, you should have become this. Where did the map come from? You did not draw it. You absorbed it from people, from screens, from 1,000 small comparisons you never agreed to make. And now you measure your life against a schedule you never chose. And every place it does not match, you feel the failure, as if you had broken a real law. But there is no law, the schedule is invented. Somewhere a person did the thing at 25. Somewhere else a person did it at 55. The universe treated them exactly the same. It did not check their ages at all. The work did not care how old the hands were that made it. The love did not ask the lovers their age before it arrived. The map in your head is the only place where the deadline exists. Think of the people you most admire across all of history. Now notice how little their timing matters to you. You do not admire them less because they were late bloomers. If anything, the ones who arrived late, after struggle, after detour, after years that looked wasted, move you more, not less. You have always loved the late bloomer in everyone else's story. You weep at it in films. You feel it in your chest when you hear it about a stranger. You only refuse to allow it in one single person in the entire world. Yourself. Extend to yourself the grace you so easily extend to everyone else. The late arrival you find beautiful in every other story is available in yours too. You just have to stop being the one person you will not forgive for being human and on your own clock. 9. Here is the turn. Here is the thing I would not say at the beginning. The reason you are ready now and were not ready then is the wasted time itself. I told you the answer would surprise you. Watch. You think the lost years were empty? subtraction, time taken off the total. But almost nothing that happens to a person is actually empty. The years you spent confused taught you what confusion feels like, so you can recognize it now and not drown in it. The years you spent on the wrong path taught you the exact texture of wrong, so that right, when you find it, will be unmistakable. The relationships that failed taught you what you cannot live with. The jobs that hollowed you out taught you what you actually need. The fears you obeyed for too long taught you the precise shape of the cage, and you cannot pick a lock you have never examined. The person who could finally hear all of this and act on it does not exist without those years. They built that person. Quietly, underground. The way a seed builds roots in the dark before anyone sees a single leaf. If you had started on time, you would have started as someone who did not yet know what you now know. You might have built the wrong thing, beautifully, for 20 years, and only realized at the end. How many people do exactly that? Sprint down a track they chose at 19 and arrive, breathless and accomplished, at a destination that was never theirs? You did not waste the time. You spent it becoming someone who knows where they actually want to go. That is not the consolation prize. That is the prize. The clarity you have right now, the one that is making this very moment feel urgent, that clarity was bought. And you paid for it with exactly the years you keep calling wasted. You are not late. You are exactly on time, and the lateness was the tuition. 10. Let me give you something to hold on the hard days, because the hard days will come and the feeling will return. Insight does not stay. It has to be rechosen. Picture a fire instead of a candle. You have been thinking of your life as a candle, a fixed amount of wax, burning down, getting shorter, and every year that passes is wax you will never get back. Under that picture, the past is pure loss and panic makes sense. Of course you are anxious. You are watching yourself shorten. But a person is not a candle. A person is a fire, and the fire does not shrink as it burns. A fire grows. It takes everything you feed it. The dry years and the green years. The good wood and the rotten wood. And it turns all of it into more heat, more light, a wider circle of warmth. The longer it has burned, the more it can hold, and the harder it is to put out. Everything you have lived is still in you, feeding the fire. Every lesson. Every scar that taught you where the edges are. Every person who passed through and left something behind. None of it left. It became heat. It became the warmth you can offer now that you could not offer at 20, because at 20 you had barely started burning. The young version of you that you keep mourning was not richer than you. They were poorer. They were a small new flame that had not yet learned to hold much. You are the bigger fire. You have never been more capable of warmth, of light, of seeing clearly in the dark than you are right now. Today, in the body you have, at the age you are, you did not lose your best years. You are standing in them. The best years are not the ones with the most wax left. They are the ones where the fire finally knows what it is for. 11. There is a particular fear underneath all of this, and I want to name it, because unnamed fears run the whole house from behind the walls. The fear is not really about time. The fear is that if you start now and it does not work, you will have proven something. That the lateness was not the problem after all. That you were the problem, As long as you never truly begin, you get to keep the comforting story that you could have, if only you had started sooner. The not starting protects the dream. Beginning puts it at risk. So you protect the dream by never testing it. And the dream stays perfect, untouched behind glass, and your life goes by outside the museum. But a dream behind glass is not a dream. It is a fossil. It is the shape a living thing left behind after it stopped being alive. The only way to keep a dream actually alive is to expose it to air, to risk, to the possibility of failing at it. Yes, you might begin and struggle. Yes, you might be slower than you would have been younger. Yes, the gap between the vision in your head and the first clumsy attempts will hurt. That gap always hurts. It hurts the 19-year-old too. It is just that the 19-year-old has not yet learned to be ashamed of being a beginner, and you have. Let yourself be a beginner again. It is not humiliating. It is the bravest thing an adult can do. To stand in the open, visibly not good yet, and keep going anyway. When every instinct you have built says protect your dignity, stay where you are competent. Do not let them see you start from zero. The people who get the lives they want are almost always the ones who are willing to be bad at something in front of others. At an age when everyone else had decided they were too old to look foolish, be willing to look foolish. It is the entry fee. It has always been the entry fee. And it is so much cheaper than the alternative, which is keeping your dignity perfectly intact, all the way to the end of a life you never actually lived. 12. So what do you actually do? Because a feeling that fades by morning is not enough, and you and I both know it. You begin from where you are. Not from where you wish you were, not from the imaginary you who started earlier. From this one, the real one, with the real history, standing in the real spot. That is the only person who can do anything, and luckily, that is the only person you are ever going to be, and you stop waiting for the moment to feel right. It will not. The moment almost never announces itself. The people you admire, the ones who finally did the thing, did not begin because the conditions aligned and a calm certainty descended. They began afraid, unready, unsure, in a moment that looked exactly as ordinary and unpromising as this one. The difference was not that their moment was better. The difference was that they moved inside an imperfect moment instead of waiting for a perfect one that was never coming. Courage is not the thing that shows up before the first step and gives you permission. Courage is the name we give to the first step itself, seen from the outside. From the inside, it just feels like fear with your legs moving anyway. That is all it ever is. That is all it ever was for everyone, including every single person you have ever envied. So move your legs while afraid. Let the regret rise. It will. Let it move through you like weather and keep walking. When the old voice says it is too late, you do not have to win an argument with it. You just have to take one more step while it talks. The voice cannot stop your feet. It only sounds like it can. 13. I am going to say one thing to you now, plainly, and I want you to actually receive it. Not deflect it the way you usually do. You are doing better than you think. Not someday, not once you fix it all. Now, the fact that you are still here, still listening, still turning something over in your chest, still reaching after everything that has tried to make you stop. That is not the behavior of someone who is failing. That is the behavior of someone who refuses to quit on their own life. And that refusal is so quiet you have never given yourself credit for it, because it does not look like strength. It looks like just getting up again. But getting up again after being knocked down as many times as you have been is the most underrated form of strength there is. You have survived every single one of your worst days. Every one. Your record is perfect. 100% of the things you were sure would break you, you walked through. And here you are on the other side, still capable of being moved. Still capable of wanting more. That is not nothing. That is almost everything. Be on your own side for once. You have been your own harshest prosecutor for so long. Try just for a while, being your own witness for the defense. The evidence is overwhelming if you would only let it be entered. 14. I want you to do one last thing with me before we finish, and it asks a little of your imagination, so stay with it. Picture yourself 1 year from today. Not the fantasy version, just an ordinary version, a year older, sitting somewhere quiet, thinking back on this exact night. There are only 2 letters that future self can write back to you, only 2. The first letter says this: I wish you had started. I have spent this whole year exactly where you are right now. Same chair. Same regret, just 1 year heavier. Nothing changed. You waited for something that never came. And now I am you, plus 365 wasted days. Asking the same question you were asking, with a little less time to answer it. Please, do not make me write this letter again next year. The second letter says this: Thank you. It was hard. The first weeks were clumsy and I felt foolish and the old voice was loud. But you began anyway, that night while you were still afraid, and so I exist. I am not finished. I am not perfect, but I am moving. I am alive in a way you had forgotten was possible. And all of it, every bit of it, traces back to one ordinary evening when you decided to stop waiting. I am so grateful you did not give up on us. Both of those letters are real. Both of those future selves are possible. They are sitting in front of you right now, like 2 doors. And here is the strange, wonderful thing. You get to choose which one writes to you. Not with a grand decision, with what you do in the small hours after this ends. Tonight, tomorrow morning. The next ordinary, unremarkable, perfectly imperfect moment. Which letter do you want to receive? You already know. Then give that future self the thing they are thanking you for. Begin. 15. So here are the 2 people one last time, and this time I want you to choose which one walks out of this. The first hears all of this, feels it, maybe even tears up a little, and then by tomorrow afternoon has folded it back into the old story. Nice words, but my situation is different. My time really is gone, and they turn back toward the closed door. They resume the long sweeping up of ashes, and the years in front of them quietly drain away in exactly the manner they so feared the first years had drained. Until one day there are no years left, and the great tragedy of their life turns out to be not the time they lost, but the time they spent mourning it. The second hears all of this and lets one sentence change. Just one. From my time is gone to my time is now. They do not become a different person overnight. They are still afraid. They still carry the same history. But they turn around. They face the open hallway. And they take one step badly, uncertainly, into a future they cannot see the end of, and then another. And the steps, repeated, become a path, and the path, walked long enough, becomes a life, the life they thought they had already forfeited. The only thing between those two people is a sentence and the willingness to act before they feel ready. That is the whole distance. It is so much smaller than the distance you imagine, and you get to decide today which side of it you stand on. So let me finally answer the question I asked at the start. The one I would not answer then. What if the time you think you wasted is the only reason you are ready now? It is not a what if, it is the truth, and you have felt it tugging at you this whole time. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not the sum of the doors that closed. You are someone who spent years, painful years, becoming exactly the person who could finally do this. And who has arrived right on schedule at the only moment that was ever actually available to you. This one. The time you mourned was never lost. It was the long, dark, invisible work of growing roots. And roots are not the opposite of blooming. Roots are how blooming becomes possible. You found your time. Not too soon, not too late. Now, and the most beautiful thing I can tell you is this. You are still here, still awake, still able to feel your own pulse quicken at the thought of beginning. That quickening is not anxiety. You have been misreading it for years. It is your life, recognizing its own chance. It only does that for things that are still possible. It would not bother stirring for something truly out of reach. The very fact that the thought of beginning still moves you is the proof, the only proof you need, that it is not too late. Dead things do not ache. Only living ones do, and you ache for this. So it is alive, and so are you. There will be a moment, soon, maybe minutes from now, when this feeling starts to fade and the old story reaches up to reclaim you. When it does, do not try to hold on to the feeling. Feelings cannot be held. Hold on to the decision instead. One small action, taken while the door is still open, is worth more than a week of being moved. Do not let this be another beautiful evening that changed nothing. Let it be the night the sentence changed. So begin. Quietly, imperfectly, afraid today. And let the tree grow.